Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, and welcome to Just a Word. As we come together once again for another Shabbat teaching, this is Kazakh Eliyahu Yasharal, along with my co-host Shamuel Fabi and the rest of the Just a Word family, as we look today into the topic, what does Matthew 5:20 mean? Exceeding the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. We're going to examine that today because Hamashiach says, if we do not, Matthew 5:20 says, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So because he tells us that we shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven, it behoves us to understand exactly what it means for our righteousness to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, something that we should not leave behind. And it is not something that people speak about regularly, in which we should, because it is a stumbling block on us entering into the kingdom. So what we are going to begin by doing, we are going to begin by looking at certain attributes of the Pharisees. Did I start recording again? Nope. I gotta get it recorded. Yes, so as we look into our righteousness exceeding the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, we begin by looking into certain attributes of the Pharisees, because we have to look at what their righteousness was to see where our righteousness needs to be so that we can exceed their righteousness. And the first thing we look into is the book of Matthew 23, verse 23, because we are looking at the fact that the Pharisees lacked judgment, mercy, and faith. Namuna, could you read Matthew 23:23, please?
All right. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone.
All right, so he was chiding them for paying tithes of mint, anise, and cumin, but they have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. But he is not saying that they should not have paid their tithes of mint and anise and cumin, but he says these ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. So if we look at it carefully, we see that the paying of tithe, mint and anise and cumin are natural things that you do in the flesh. But he says you omitted judgment, mercy, and faith. These are the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law was missing from the Pharisees. So let's look at the meaning of judgment, and it is from the Greek krisis, subjectively or objectively for or against, by extension a tribunal, by implication justice, specifically divine law, accusation, condemnation, damnation, judgment. So judgment there is splitting justice, if I was to say it in my own words. Calling right, right, and calling wrong, wrong. It says they have omitted that. Calling right, right, and calling wrong, wrong, but they have also left out the mercy, which is a Greek word elios, of uncertain affinity, compassion, human or divine, especially active, tender mercy. So they also left out compassion. So in addition to calling out right and wrong, we also have to have compassion on others as well. And then they also left out emunah, or faith. In the Greek, it is a Greek word pistis, persuasion, that is credence, moral conviction of religious truth or the truthfulness of a law or a religious teacher, especially reliance upon Hamashiach for salvation. Abstractly constancy in such profession. So by extension, the system of religious truth itself, assurance, belief, faith, fidelity. So the faith, the emunah, is belief on the Most High, reliance on the Most High, or reliance upon Hamashiach for salvation. So what the Pharisees actually did, they did not call out right nor wrong. They did not show compassion to those who they thought were wrong, and they did not rely upon Hamashiach or upon the Most High for anything. They did everything of their own efforts. Okay? So, in essence, they lived to appear righteous, but they were corrupted on the inside. Matthew 23, 25 to 28. Matthew 23, 25 to 28. Let me get this up on the big screen here. What's happening? Oh. Okay, read please. Matthew 23, 25 to 28.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
Yes? So the Pharisees had an appearance of righteousness, had an appearance of right standing, but inside of them, they were unclean. So this brings us to us today as believers. We have many believers who look righteous on the outside, but our emphasis is not on the inside. Hamashiach said, cleanse first that is within the cup. So he is not saying that the outside must not also be clean. He's saying instead of the outside being clean and the inside dirty, first, make sure you cleanse first that which is inside, so that the outside of them may be clean also. So we know that as believers, how we adorn ourselves, adorn our bodies is important. And there are people who adorn themselves in righteousness. Even us, we adorn ourselves and we might look so kadosh, so holy to others. But if we do not work on the inside, then it does not make any sense. What we bring on the outside must come after the inside has been cleansed. So it starts on the inside and manifests on the outside. Verse 27 says the same thing. Read, please.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness.
All right, whited sepulchres, whited graves. appear beautiful outward, but underneath it, or within, dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Verse 28.
Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and sin, iniquity.
All right, so you see our problem here. Our problem here is to ensure that we are not like this. We have to ensure that we are right on the inside. Because if we are right on the inside and appear and are not right, if we are right outside, and are not right inside, the only people we can fool is men. We cannot fool the Most High who knows our hearts. So we have to put emphasis on the inner man to ensure that we are truly in righteousness before the Most High. Yeah. So that is why Hamashiach said, do as they say, not as they do. Matthew 23, 1 to 11. Do what they say, but not as they do. And even for us today, if you see someone speaking righteousness, and then you see the person not in right standing, do what the person says. Because if that is righteousness, then that can help in your salvation. But don't do what they do if you see that they are not walking in righteousness. Matthew 23, verse 1. Please, speak, please.
Then spake Yahusha to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do, but do not ye after their works. For they say, and do not do.
And do not. So the Pharisees, they were not all that bad. Because they will tell you the truth to do it, but they will not do it. So he's saying, do not follow their works. Do what they say, but don't follow what they do. Verse 4. And here are other things now to do with the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. Verse 4.
For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers.
So this is an attribute of the Pharisees, because the Pharisees have been grossly misunderstood, especially by Christians who don't understand what they represented. What the Pharisees did, they spoke about the law, that it should be observed, but they also added heavy burdens to the law on other people. But they themselves did not seek to obey the burdens that they put on people. And some of these burdens were throughout scripture. When, for example, Hamashiach healed the man and told him to pick up his bed and walk, and the Pharisees says that he transgressed the law. There is nothing in the law that says a man cannot pick up his bed on the Shabbat day. Several of the encounters with Hamashiach was them adding to the word and not actually obeying the word. Verse 5.
But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments.
All right. So here's another attribute of the righteousness of the Pharisees. All their works they do for to be seen. I want us to take notes of all these things, all these attributes of the Pharisees, because it says our righteousness must exceed these righteousness. So broaden their phylacteries. The phylacteries are little boxes that they used to put on their arms that had in little scriptures inside of them. And they made it broad so that everyone can see. The broader it is, the more it seems as if they are studying. And they enlarged the borders of their garments. What does this mean? The borders of their garments, Maccabi. They made their fringes big and wide so that everyone could see that they could be seen of men. Verse 6.
And love the uppermost rooms at feast, and the chief seats in the synagogues,
Continue.
and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Hamashiach, and all ye are brethren.
All right, so they love all the limelight, and they love to be called Rabbi, which is teacher, teacher. And it says, be ye not called teacher, for one is your master, even Hamashiach. One teacher who gives to us through his ruach the ability to speak his words. In verse 9.
And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your father which is in Shamayim.
Continue.
Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Hamashiach. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant.
He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. So the Pharisees believe that those who were greatest among them should be exalted and highlighted above others. But Hamashiach said, it is the other way around. He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. So this is not one way now, the first way that it is shown to us how to make our righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribe and the Pharisees. Those who among us who are the greatest are to be willing to be the servants of the others. All right, so we're just running through the manifestations of the righteousness of the Pharisees to begin with, to lay a foundation. All right, so what we have here is that the Pharisees were actually religious. Religious. When you are religious, you will follow the commandments of men. You will have certain routines that you follow. And those routines, of course, will not necessarily be in line with the way of the Most High, but it will appear as if you are in righteousness. It will seem as if you are in righteousness. And when you are religious, you will come with different traditions. And we see in Matthew 15 that the Pharisees came with the traditions of the elders. Matthew 15, 1-9. Let's see the righteousness of the Pharisees. Verse 1.
Then came to Yahushua scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread.
All right. So we see the first religious tradition here. Asking the disciples, asking Yahushua, why does his disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? Not the commandments of the Most High, mind you. The tradition of the elders. And this, Matthew 15, 1-9, is another misunderstood Christian verse, misunderstood verse that the Christians misunderstand because they do not understand the foundation of it. The foundation of it is the tradition of the elders, because they use it to say, I think, we're going to continue and see what they use it for. For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. That is the whole thing, tradition of the elders. Verse 3.
But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of Alua by your tradition?
All right, so this is the Messiah's contention. Why do you also transgress the commandment of Alua by your tradition, the tradition of the elders that you keep. And this is one of the things that the Pharisees did. Their traditions messed with the commandments of the Most High. And that is what we have in organized religion today. Their traditions counteract, mess with the traditions of the Most High. Case in point, and this is what we were talking about today, Sunday worship. Sunday worship is not from the Most High. It is the tradition of man. And because of Sunday worship, the tradition of man says worship on Sunday, mankind has followed the tradition of man and bring to naught the Most High's commandment to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So they forget the Sabbath day and keep the traditions of man. Just an example. Verse 4.
For Allah commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of Allah of none effect by your tradition.
All right, so in other words, the command says, honor thy father and thy mother. The Pharisees say to their parents, what I had to give you, I gave it as a gift. So whatever you would have gotten from me, it has been given away as a gift. Hamashiach says, thus have ye made the commandment of Allah of none effect by your tradition. Okay, as we were speaking about the tradition of men today. Verse 7, he said,
Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth near unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.
Their heart is far from me. So if our heart is near to him, then we would obey his commandments. But because our hearts are far from him, then we obey the commandments of men that overrule the commandments. So if we truly love the Most High, we will go back to obeying his commandments and rejecting the commandments of men. Verse 9 says,
But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men.
But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. In other words, if the commandments that you follow are not his commandments, but are the commandments of men, then it says our worship is in vain. And remember, we're talking about Sunday worship today. That is the commandment of men. He's saying, in vain they do worship me. Now, almost 2.8 billion people, maybe about 2 billion Christians worship the Most High on a Sunday. He's saying it is in vain. When something is in vain, what does it mean? Not. Yeah? In vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. So, we're going to go a little deeper now, having laid that foundation, to explain the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. So, what we have to understand is how our righteousness can exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. And the Apostle Shaul, or Paul, told us in 2 Corinthians 3:4-6 about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. Can you read, please?
Oh, it's on the screen. Can you bring the screen back?
Oh, sorry. There we go.
And such trust have we through Hamashiach to Aluawad. Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of Allah, who also hath made us able ministers of the new covenant, or the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the ruach, for the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life.
The New Testament, not of the letter, but of the ruach, or the Spirit, as they call it. So he's saying that we are ministers not of the letter of the law, because the letter of the law is the literal law, word for word. The spirit of the law is the spiritual understanding of the law. So in the New Testament, we walk out the law in the spirit, not in the letter, because it says, for the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. And we're going to look into Romans 7 again to see what it means by the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. And we're going to look at circumcision of the heart versus circumcision of the flesh. Read it, please.
For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man, but of Allah.
All right, so our righteousness exceeding the righteousness of the Scribes and the Pharisees. The Pharisees kept the law to the letter. We keep it in the spirit. The Pharisees concentrated on circumcision of the flesh, physical circumcision. We walk in the circumcision of the heart, whether or not our flesh has been circumcised. All right? So for us to understand the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law, we have to go to Romans 7. Now we have done Romans 7 several times, but this came up this week again, and I hope the person is listening. The person was asking whether or not, and probably there are people out there who have not yet understood this, because our ministry now is kind of a reawakening another set of people. So some of the things I've done before, we will have to do it again. And the person was asking if it was because of demons or evil spirits, why he went back into sin. And so he asked for me to explain Romans 7, which falls right in here. So let's take a look at it again. The Torah, or the law, and the law of sin and death. Now here's another chapter that has been misunderstood again. And it gives us an understanding of our sinful nature and why we sin. Romans 7, verse 7. Read, please.
Maximize.
Oh.
What shall we say then?
Oh, hold on, let me maximize it.
All right.
So it is. All right, go ahead.
What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Allah forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet.
All right, so if you are a Christian or just coming from Christianity, please pay attention to this part of it, please. Because no doubt you have been taught that the law is done away with and we do not need the law and all of those things. So Romans 7 explains to you the role of the law. It says, is the law sin? It says, Allah forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt covet. Thou shalt not covet. So the law is needed to show us what sin is. It says, I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. So you cannot know sin unless the law tells you this is sin. That's what it's saying. But verse 8.
But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead.
So what Shaul is saying is that sin, because he is going to go further down the line and tell you about the law of sin and death, how his body worked, attracted to sin, wanting to sin. So when the law tells us what sin is, then we become attracted to the sin because we are under the penalty of sin. The wages of sin is death. So when we see what sin is, then our bodies naturally are attracted to sin. So when we hear the commandments, we naturally want to sin. That is what he's saying. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. So where there is no law, then sin is dead. But as long as the law is there, we are going to be attracted to sin. Verse 9.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, but sin, taking occasion by the commandment. Now, what Shaul is saying here is very key because we can be blinded to the understanding of this quickly again. It says sin is taking occasion by the law. So people are masking their inward character by doing the word, right? But there is no transformation of the word in them. So if you look at the above, he says, I have not known. Speaking about me, is not speaking about somebody. I have not, because Paul knew what? The law. So Paul is explaining this to people, his brothers and sisters, because the word was revealed to his brother, to Israel, isn't it? So the Most High revealed, showed the word to Jacob. That means that Jacob knew what the Most High's will was or is. So all the children of Yasharal know about the law. That is why in Timothy, we hear Paul telling Timothy to continue in that which he was taught from when he was young. So Paul is saying that Paul is speaking to those who do the commandments, because the commandment has some kind, a pretense of holiness. When you're keeping the Sabbath, people look at you and like, wow. But the point is that people use doing the word to mask themselves from truly having the word have an impartation within them. So when sin is there, they cannot see the sin inside of them. Because what? Because they are deceived by the very same commandment, thinking that, oh, I have a form of holiness, but the power that it has to transform me is not taking place. So I just mask myself in pretense of doing the Torah. So I go to synagogue on Shabbat. When it comes to slaughtering, I slaughter. I do all these beautiful things, like the rich young ruler, isn't it the same thing? Like the rich young ruler who was a citizen and a child of the soil. He did everything right in the Torah, but yet Yahusha still found fault in him. Yahusha wasn't necessarily speaking to the Gentiles, but he was speaking to the homeborns, because charity begins at home. Judgment begins at home. So Yahuwah is revealing to us the state of our condition internally. Because without rectifying the internal, everything we do on the external is going to be the exact same thing our fathers were doing in the Old Testament. That is why he came back to renew this covenant again. So this New Testament is a renewed again. The Most High given another chance again in renewing, in this time, bringing clear the law, making it very visible through Yahushua Mashiach, his examples, to see that the law is supposed to take effect in us before we are even worthy to proclaim judgment, or to even begin to want to teach sinners their transgressions. If the work is not done in us, so saying sin is taking occasion, that means that they have the word, but there is still sin amongst them. They still hurt one another. They still cheat on one another. They lie to one another. They hurt one another. The very same things that the Most High got angry with, and he slayed them in the beginning. and said to them, everything that you do, your new moons, your all these traditions you keep that I gave to you, they smell. I don't want them anymore. Your Sabbaths should go away. Your solemn assembly should go away. Your holy convocations are all filthy. Your sacrifices and oblations are all filthy. The Most High wasn't necessarily telling them that, hey, do not do it. But he wanted to set the process right, which is by bringing back the spirit, which is the heart, the repentance that came from the heart, that we can love the Most High truly by his word, that we do it not under obligation, but that we believe it is okay to be good. Worshiping him in spirit and in truth. Because if that is not there, the conversion of our heart is not there, then guess what the Lord is going to do to us, those of us who claim to have the law? We are going to be legalistic. We are not going to have mercy. This is what Shaul is talking about. Sin rotten in me, all manner of concupiscence. What did Shaul do when he had the law? When he had just the letter? He was killing people. He was accusing his own brethren. He wasn't slaughtering foreigners. He was slaughtering his own brothers and sisters. Because the law always matches an eye for an eye. When I'm right, I expect everybody to come to my standard. Everybody must be just like me. And we don't have the patience and the time to aid one another by way of mercy. So he says, but sin taking occasion by the commandment wrought in me all manner. So it brought forth all manner of wickedness inside of me. Why do you think many of us get offended when we are corrected? Why do you think the same people who get offended when they are corrected go out there and speak to people to convert them? Do we think what we are doing is true? And that's what Shaul is talking about. So Shaul is speaking to the homeborn who have the law. That is why he's telling them that, nay, I am not telling you that Torah is done away with. It can never be done away with. He says it can never, even if an angel came back from the Shamayim to tell you that this word is done away with, he says he's a liar. Even if Hamashiach says that to any one of you, he is a liar. Why? Because without the law, how can I know how to even correct a sinner? Talk less myself. So I need the law. But the law is there to help me first before my neighbor. Help me, Shamuel. So his brethren were arguing. Now that you're telling us to look at the Yahusha, which is an abomination, how can we look to a man? We've always known to look to the Most High, and how we look to the Most High is by doing all these traditions, by keeping the letter. And all Paul was trying to show them is that no, the Most High has renewed the covenant by making it easy now for all of us. He says he has magnified the law by way of looking at this example, because this man was able to appease his wrath. So that means if you follow his example, you are going to be able to do what? To appease also the wrath of the Most High. That is how it ought to be done. He wasn't saying that Yahusha has come to abolish the word, the law. So this is speaking to the homeborns first, before the strangers. And when the homeborns can understand this, then they can now be a light, a true light unto the Gentiles, effortless, because the conversion is true. I'm sure we have seen our brothers and sisters in this day, how they are butchering people with the word. I'm sure we have seen it all around us, because the word is true. It tells you what the law can lead you to. So there is a righteousness that is of the word. But how do we get the spiritual aspect of it? The internal is where you cannot deceive your own self. It is where you have to work on to convert your heart, to change your mind. I will put my laws in their inward parts.
Write my laws in their minds.
And in their minds. So when you are feeling anger, you don't resort to wrath. You resort to mercy, because you're looking at how Yah has bird with you. So that's what Torah is supposed to do, not to puff you up, because Torah can puff us up. So Shaul is speaking something very, very deep, and only Yahuwah can give the understanding of this. That the Most High is saying nothing is done away with. What I need is what you need to understand, and you need to hear me on it. There has to be the conversion of the heart first before you can bring me any oblations or anything, or observe new moons and keep anything. He says, if you do not do this in spirit and in truth, you murder yourself again, because I'm going to kill you myself. So there has to be that transformation. So we have to be very careful now that we are back to the word. Now that we are back to obedience, we have to have mercy. And mercy can only come about and be produced from us if the word does not take occasion again, but that it works. It works in us. It takes away the carnal man, the wickedness. It removes all of us. Then we can be able to teach sinners their transgression. We can be able to extend mercy. And through mercy, Yahweh sees mercy equates to love, because the binding material for love is mercy. And when mercy is there, you realize sinners now become free because they desire and they sincerely learn to walk again. And it takes time to begin to walk from a child to an adult. So they keep trying, because the child doesn't walk at the first attempt. The child falls down. They're going to fall down. They're going to fall down. And Yasharal is supposed to have mercy, patience, exude a lot of patience, whilst the sinner is being transformed day by day, not instantly. So we were deceived to believe that when a man lays his hand on you, automatic there's transformation. No. When the word comes, it is a start. So Shaul is speaking something very severe and very deep here. That sin can hide inside of you without not knowing. So you have a form of holiness, but you deny the power thereof. So the transformation in the person, in me who is preaching the word, is actually going to show that there is really power in the what? In the word. And that's what Hamashiach became. The transformation in him now became evidence to show that this power truly is in this word. So that is what it's saying. Because if not, again, sin is going to hide in us, because sin is very dangerous. Sin is not so obvious, especially with the one that has the word, which is Yasharal, the people whom the word is revealed to. They have been masking under traditions, rather than be changing and being converted. So Shaul is talking about this. Romans 7:8. You can continue, Ak.
All right. Thank you. Let me get this thing back on the maximum. I don't know why it's sticking. Yeah, so the law itself brings out much evil in us if our hearts, if the spirit of the law is missing, which is why Hamashiach said they tied mint, anise, and cumin and left out the weightier matters of the law: judgment, mercy, and what was the other one? Yes, emunah, or faith. Yes. All right, so we were at verse 9, or were we 10? Verse 9 to 10. Read, please.
For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died.
So the commandment revived sin, because the commandment shows us what sin is, and our sinful nature, our sinful selves, deceived by sin, were, as Shaul said, were slain by sin, deceived and tricked by sin. Verse 10.
And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death.
So the commandment says, thou shalt not covet, and it wrought all manner of covetousness in me. So the same commandment which was ordained to give me life, I found to be unto death, leading me unto sin. Verse 11.
For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me.
Slew me by the commandment, taking occasion, and deceived me. Verse 12.
Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good.
So we see nothing wrong with the law here. Nothing wrong. We are not saying anything is wrong with the law. It says the law is holy and the commandment holy and just and good. But the same law that is holy and just and good brings in me all manner of sinfulness. So if the law is holy, just and good, where is the problem? That is the question. Where is the problem? Verse 13.
Was then that which is good made death unto me? Allah forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful.
So it's not the law that is the problem. It's sin in me, using that which is good, so that sin will become exceedingly sinful. So nothing is wrong with the commandment, nothing is wrong with the law. Something is wrong inside of me. Verse 14.
For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin.
Now here is a problem. Here's a solution to the problem. I am carnal. Let's slide it up. I am carnal. So it is my carnal nature that is the problem. Because I am sold to the desires of my flesh. So when the commandment comes, carnal me is powerless to manage the spiritual law. So what Shaul is telling us indirectly is that if you are not walking out the law in the spirit, your carnality is going to make you powerless to overcome sin. So in order to walk out the law, you have to walk in the spirit, which is why, again, the Yahusha said they tied mint, anise, and cumin, but left out the weightier matters of the law: judgment, mercy, and faith. What a whole lot of... verse 15.
For that which I do, I allow not. For that I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that I do.
All right? So here's the quandary that he was in. What he does, it is not what he wanted to do. What he wants to do, he cannot do it. But what he hates, that is what he does. That is how complex the human being is when it comes to sin. Very complex. We don't want to do things, but then we do it. And then when we do it, we regret it. But then we cannot control ourselves. What is causing that? Verse 16.
If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good.
All right? So, if I do that which I would not, then it shows that the law is good and that the law is not the problem. Because if I am doing that which I do not want to do, it cannot be the law that is doing it. Isn't that so? If, for example, I am to show compassion on someone, it was laid on my heart to give that person something to help them, and then I see a pretty shirt that I want, and I just take the money and buy the shirt. That's using an example that comes out of my head. Right? It is not the law that is wrong there. Yeah? When the law says you must pay your vow. Okay? And then when it comes to paying my vow, I cannot. It is not the law that is wrong. It is me. Something is wrong with. So verse 17 says,
Now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
But sin that dwelleth in me. So when we are always sinning or we are struggling over sin as believers and all of those things. It is our sinful nature, the sin that dwells in us, that is our problem. It is sin that dwells in us. And the sin dwells in us, as we have always said, because of the penalty of sin that Adam was under. When the Most High said, in the day that thou sin, thou shalt surely die. So death was on Adam, death through sin. And the word says in Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death, the payment of sin. So we are under the penalty of sin. So it is sin that leads us to death. So we are naturally wired inside of us to sin to lead us to death. So it is not the law that is the problem. It is the penalty of sin that is in us, that dwells in us, that makes us unable to overcome sin. That's why it says, now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Verse 18.
For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not.
You see? I know that in my flesh is nothing good, but I want to do it. But how to do that which is good, I cannot do it. Verse 19.
For the good that I would that I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do.
And this is anyone who says they have not gone through this is a liar. Is a liar. You want to do good, but boy, the good won't come. And you know the evil and you despise the evil, and yet still you find yourself doing the evil. Verse 20.
Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
That is the sinful nature. What we are talking about here is what Shaul calls the law of sin and death. Shaul was not calling the law of sin and death. The law of sin and death is sin that dwells in us that leads us to death. That's what he's talking about. That there is an unwritten law in us that we have to sin so that we are led to death. Because the wages of sin is
death.
Death. Verse 21.
I find in the law that when I would do good, evil is present with me.
This is the law that he calls the law of sin and death. He's not calling the law of sin and death, as many Christians think. Verse 22.
For I delight in the law of Allah after the inward man.
So we love the law. Those of us who are seeking to serve him, we love the law. We love righteousness, right? After the inward man. But there is another law that is in us, the law of sin and death. Verse 23.
But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members.
There we go. The law of sin and death. The law of sin, which is in my members, in my body. That is how we are wired. Sinful creatures, wired for sin. So even though we delight in the law of the Most High, we want to obey the law of the Most High, there is an unwritten law that is in us that is leading us to sin because of our carnal minds, because we are sinners sold into sin. And this, we are helpless to overcome it. That is how we are also made. We are made deficient in overcoming sin. We cannot overcome sin by our own effort. The Most High made us deficient that we have to go to Him in order to overcome our sinfulness. Verse 24.
O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank Allah through Yahushua Mashiach our Master. So then, with the mind I myself serve the law of Alua, but with the flesh, the law of sin.
So here is the problem now. Yahushua HaMashiach, our master, is the way out of this sinfulness. Believing in him, following him, is the way out of our sinfulness. So as long as we are alive, it says, with the mind, I myself serve the law of Alua. So through Yahusha, when our minds are transformed, we will serve the law of Alua. But our carnal flesh, our bodies, are always going to be subject and always going to be liable to sin. So, here is where the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees comes in. The righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, as we have seen, is based on carnality, because they do not rise and do the things in the spirit. We, to exceed this righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, we have to now be walking in the spirit. We have to be walking in love, the fruit of the ruach, love, mercy, faith, forgiveness, long-suffering, give me them, kindness, gentleness, goodness, meekness. That's 9. Yeah, we have to be walking in those for our righteousness to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. It is not enough to obey law over and over again, the law, the law, the law. No, our righteousness has to rise above that. And this is the theme of what we're going to be showing today as we continue. All right? So, let's get there now. And the point that we're going to make now is that a legalistic life cannot transform itself nor transform others. So if we are just basing on the law and not on the spirit of the law, then we cannot transform ourselves nor transform others. So we have to become new creatures through Hamashiach. Everything has to become new. So let me tell you something. The Old Testament only, people who are New Testament only, there are people who are New Testament only, that's in Christianity. And then there are people who are Old Testament only. I don't know which one is worse. I think the Old Testament only is worse, because they only believe that they should follow the Torah and the prophets. That's it. No Hamashiach, no Messiah. So missing out on the spirit of the law. They miss out on the spirit of the law by rejecting Hamashiach. Therefore, as Romans 7 just tells us, they now are subject to their sinful nature. It's very dangerous. So 2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us, Therefore,
if any man be in a Hamashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new.
So this is how your righteousness has to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. You have to become new. It's not a matter of just obeying rules. All right? It's not a matter of just obeying rules, because if you are just obeying rules and saying you're obeying the law, then your heart is going to become hardened, as we saw in Romans 7. Sin is going to deceive you. And you are going to be walking in unrighteousness, thinking that you are righteous, or not even caring whether or not you're righteous, because you will believe that you are appeasing the Most High by doing what is right in His eyes, not knowing that the only thing that can please the Most High is a transformed heart, a heart of flesh, as the word says. So verse 2 of Romans 12.
And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and the perfect will of Alua.
So you cannot know what is the good and perfect and acceptable will of Allah unless your mind is transformed. And that is when you can prove his perfect and acceptable will. So if we are there following rules, following the law only, not having our hearts converted, we will not be able to know his will. And so guess whose will we are going to be following? We are going to be following our own righteousness. The Apostle Shaul or Paul spoke a sentence that we cannot say it enough. He said, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law. And we're going to look at that further on. So our own righteousness, the law allows us to have our own righteousness. So following the law alone, without the guidance of the Messiah, we will be setting up our own righteousness, our own standard of right and wrong. We will be interpreting the law along our own lines and not having the example of Hamashiach, who showed us how to walk out the law in the Spirit. So, as Matthew 5:14 says, ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. So when we are transformed, then we become the light of the world. Before that, we are in darkness. Okay? All right. So another way of understanding the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, how we must overcome the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, is understanding the battle between the flesh and the ruach, as it tells us in Galatians 5:16 to 25. Galatians 5:16 to 25. So the Pharisees, they walked in the spirit of the flesh, in the works of the law, justifying themselves by what they did. Let me get the right verse. What is it? 16. Okay. Yeah, they justified themselves by what they did, not by what they believed, not by the belief of Hamashiach. Verse 16 says,
This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh.
so here's where your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. When you are walking in the ruach, when you're walking in the Spirit. Otherwise, you will fulfill the lust of the flesh. That is why the Pharisees, that is why the Old Testament only believers cannot enter the kingdom, as it is said, because their righteousness is the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, the righteousness of one who just follow rules and not transformed. So they are fulfilling the lust of the flesh. We have to walk in the ruach, or we will be fulfilling the lust of the flesh. Verse 17.
For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would.
All right, so this is the battle, the never-ending battle, the battle of the carnal flesh and of the ruach, of the Spirit. Verse 18 says,
But if ye be led of the ruach, that's the Spirit, ye are not under the law.
you are not under the law. Now, here it is now. When our hearts are transformed, we can be led by Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy Spirit. When we are led by the Holy Spirit, then we have to go to pour John 3:8 to see what happens when we are led by the Spirit. John 3:8, that we punish. Well, John 3:8.
The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh, and whither it goeth. So is every one that is born of the Spirit.
So hear this now. If you are born of the Spirit, and the ruach, the spirit, is able to take you wherever he wants you to go, then the spirit cannot lead you into sin. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
Cannot. If it's one place, the Ruach HaKadosh that they call the Holy Spirit, if there's one place it cannot take you, it's take you into sin. So if you surrender yourself and the Spirit is able to take you wherever he wants you to go, then you are assured that you are not going to sin. Period.
Another fascinating thing about this passage, because many of us have also likened this in terms of movement, literal physical movement, traveling from one point to the other and thinking, oh, I'm led by the ruach. No, that is not what it is. This is how the Spirit leads you. And this is what it looks like to have the Spirit of the Word. When you are about to, when someone steps on your toe, what do you feel? Pain, right?
Pain.
And when you feel pain, what is the instant thing your whole senses is telling you to do?
Attack.
All right. So now your understanding is telling you to do the obvious, which is attack. But then comes the ruach inside of you to say, no, there is a better approach to this. And once you get the conviction, this is how you know that you are in the spirit of the word. Your meekness and your humility yields you to that voice, and you are convicted, and you look at the situation again and say, no, although I feel this hurt, this pain, although my whole senses are screaming, we are under attack, and you need to fight back, I choose to yield to the Spirit. That means I overcome my own understanding and lean and acknowledge the Most High in that situation. This is where it starts from internally. Because the carnal man always wants to have its way, its own way. That is why Hamashiach says, deny yourself. Because if you don't deny yourself, the Spirit will not come within you. He will not reside in you. Because if he resides in you, this is what you're going to do. You are going to grieve him. Because he will be pricking your conscience and saying, no, 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 you're about to tell a lie. No, stop it. No, stop it. And then you still continue and go ahead and tell a lie. And the lie is beautifully crafted within you, and the people on the outside cannot see. But although you are speaking something amazing internally, you are dead. But the Spirit leads you to be truthful within yourself. This is the whole point. So it bloweth where it wants to lead you. You are thinking of doing this beautiful thing by taking revenge. And the Spirit is saying, nope. And in that moment, everyone is expecting you to retaliate. But now you just hold your brother or your sister and you hug them. And you say, no, it's okay. You can go. And everybody's like, whoa, what just happened? This is not the brother that I knew yesterday. This is not the sister that I knew. So when the Spirit moves in that way, men are surprised. Because men respond to the obvious. The Spirit does not move according to the carnal man. I hope we can understand. I hope we catch this one. Aki, you can go ahead.
Yep. Very important. Very important addition there. So when you are led that way, you are not under the law. That means no sin will bind you. None of the sin that the law shows will have you under a yoke. Simple. Now, if you are not led of the ruach, this is what's going to happen to you. Verse 19, please, onwards.
Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim.
You see? These things will be there when you are under the works of the flesh. Let's hope you're not tripped out. These things are there when you're under the works of the flesh and you're not walking in the ruach. All of these things that will lead you outside the kingdom. So the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees will bring forth all of these works of the flesh. But on the other hand, now, when you are walking in the ruach, when you are walking in the spirit, this is what will happen. Verse 22.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law.
And they
that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with affections and lust.
All right, first thing, against such there is no law, which means when you're walking in all of these, when you're walking in all of them, then you're walking in righteousness. There is no sin to convict you for walking in love, joy, shalom, or peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, or temperance. And it says, they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. So when you are walking in the righteousness of the Pharisees, then your flesh will not be crucified. Your flesh will still be heightened, which means you are still liable to sin. But when you belong to the Messiah, then you have killed the flesh by denying yourself and walking after him, walking as he walked. All right? Okay. So, oh boy. So we're talking about the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. We got to look into justification by faith versus justification through the works of the law. Because this is how the Pharisees sought to justify themselves, by the works of the law, by what they did. This is their problem. So, Romans 3:19 to 31. This is the problem. So, Romans 3, let me get this started. So, the law is there. What the Pharisees did, they justified themselves in keeping the law. So when the law says one thing, they said, okay, the law says this, well, I do not do this. Kind of ticking off a checklist. Well, I do not do this, I do not do that. Well, okay, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. But the righteousness that is in Yahusha, when you are led off the ruach, you are just led and pricked. You have a conscience. You have a good conscience that responds to right and wrong. And you will naturally be pricked in the heart by the ruach as to what is right and what is wrong. And in so doing, you will walk in right and wrong without having to be literally every day consulting the law to see whether you are right or wrong. So the Pharisees justify themselves by what they do. That is why they added to the law. So for example, if it says you wear fringes, they make their fringes extra big. If it says that, what else did they do? What else did they add to the law? To the Sabbath, for example. The law of the Sabbath, there's nowhere in the Sabbath that says, for example, when Hamashiach went and plucked corn in the field, they were hungry. The mercy that is in the law allowed them to pass through the field and pluck the corn. There is no work there. And the Pharisees say, hey, that is wrong. But there's nothing in the law against passing through a field, picking a few ears of corn, eating on your way to the assembly. So they added everything to the law and prided themselves in their obedience. So let's go to verse 19.
Sorry. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before Yahuwah.
Now that's the purpose of the law. Everybody become guilty before him to show everyone that, hey, you are not righteous. You have to seek my righteousness. Okay? So all the world becomes guilty. And these are those who are under the law. And remember we said, if you are walking in the Spirit, you are not under the law. So this would not pertain to you if you are walking in the Spirit. Verse 20.
Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin.
What is this saying? It is saying by the deeds of the law, by the works of the law, you are not justified. You are not justified just because you keep the law. Because by the law is the knowledge of sin. So he's saying there, you are not justified because you keep the law. That's not the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law is to show you what sin is. That's the purpose. Not to make you justified before the Most High and say, hey, he's keeping the law. He's keeping the law. He is righteous. No. You are righteous. It's the other way around. Starts from the inside. You are righteous, so you walk in obedience to the law.
Yes.
So the righteousness that is in Yahusha, that is what makes you righteous before the Most High. The fact that inside is converted, inside is transformed, which makes you now able to walk out everything on the outside in righteousness. Instead of the inside being corrupted and you having appearance on the outside of righteousness. Simply that. So verse 21.
But now the righteousness of Allah without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets.
So the righteousness of Allah, of the Most High, without the law is manifested. Manifested how? Manifested when we walk as our Messiah walked. And it is being witnessed by the law and the prophets, which shows you that the law is not done away with. But the law is bearing witness to our righteousness, which is the righteousness through our belief in Yahushua HaMashiach. Verse 22.
Even the righteousness of Allah, which is by faith of Yahushua HaMashiach, unto all, and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. For
Continue.
all have sinned and come short of the mercy of the Most High.
All of us are equal until Hamashiach comes in. He is the one who makes the difference. Verse 24.
Being justified freely by his mercy through the redemption that is in Yahushua HaMashiach.
So this is a justification. Freely we are justified by his favor through the redemption. So we are justified in what we believe and how we are transformed, not by us following rules. But when we are transformed, we will walk in obedience to the rules, not to the letter, but in the spirit. Verse 25.
Before you move to 25,
Yes.
let me say this. So the Most High laid on my heart one time when I was driving and says that everywhere in the New Testament where I see grace, I must put mercy there. Because what the Christians or the scribes did is that they put grace there. Grace is a reason why many are dependent on the works of the law.
Could you start over because you tripped out? I think it's our.
Okay. So the Most High said to me one time when I was driving, pondering, it says, everywhere you see in the New Testament, or the renewed covenant, it says, where you see grace, put mercy there. It is not grace. And what did he mean? What did he mean by that? The religious people, that is the scribes, deliberately inserted grace, and is a reason why we think we are justified by the law. All right. What do I mean by that? This grace means that you possibly can do something to receive the mercy of the Most High, which is not true. So grace means that it literally puffs you up, in the sense thinking that, oh, because I go around keeping the Torah, that automatically the Most High loves me. No. But the moment you take away grace and you put mercy there, it is very humbling. Mercy is very humbling. Mercy means that you did nothing. You have not done anything, and nothing is left to your own strength for you to be qualified. Mercy simply means that Yahuwah, by his own wisdom, has shown you this act in order for you to stand a chance at entering his kingdom. So that you don't go around thinking that, oh, because I'm doing this, I'm good. Oh, because I'm doing... No. That is what grace does to you. Grace puffs people up. But mercy reminds us who we used to be and how we have received and obtained this mercy. That is not through works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy, he saved us. So that is humbling, knowing that Yahuwah does not owe you anything, but indeed in the first place, you were meant to be doing righteousness. So that keeps us constantly in a state of humility, so that we don't say, because I have all knowledge, so I am qualified. Because we don't say that I do so much good, I have the prophecies with me, I can interpret them, I can speak this, I can... No, it has nothing to do with that. If you have that and you go to a sinner, guess what you are going to be doing? You're going to accept yourself as what? As better than them. You're going to look to a sinner thinking highly of yourself over them. But when you know you have been saved by way of mercy, you go to a sinner, you extend the very same mercy towards that sinner. So he says, remove grace and put mercy there. All right.
Okay. For the grace is indeed a boast. Saved by grace. Yeah. Verse 25.
Whom Allah hath set...
Let me put it back up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Whom Allah hath set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past through the forbearance of Elohim.
So the Messiah was sent to be an atonement, a propitiation, through belief in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past, his righteousness for past sins, through the forbearance of the Most High. Verse 26.
Where is boasting then?
No. Verse 26.
To declare, I say, at this time his righteousness, that he might be just, and the justifier of him which believeth in Yahusha.
So the justification here is not through works, not through what we do, but through belief in Hamashiach. Continue.
Where is boasting then? It is excluded. By what law? Of works? Nay, but by the law of faith.
Verse 28.
Therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law.
All right? That's the conclusion. Without the works of the law. So our righteousness to exceed, for our righteousness to exceed the righteousness of the Scribes and the Pharisees, we must be justified by what we believe, not in what we do. So the next thing now is, even though we are justified by emunah or faith and not by works, faith without works is dead. So faith is nothing if it does not lead to good works. James 2:21-26. Of course, many of these things we have gone over, but we go through them again. Verse 21.
Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect?
So this is what we're saying, that it is the belief that leads us to good works, not the works in themselves that justify us, but when we believe, we will be brought into good works. Continue.
Seest that? Okay, and the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed Allah, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of the Most High.
Verse 24.
Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only.
All right, so we say that faith triggers the good works. For your righteousness to exceed the scribes or the Pharisees, then your faith has to exceed your good works. So, it is very important for us to be walking in total righteousness. Our righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. And this is why. Ezekiel 33, 12 to 13. This is why we care about the righteousness. Go ahead, please.
Therefore, thou son of man, say unto the children of thy people, the righteousness of the righteous shall not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wickedness of the wicked, he shall not fall thereby in the day that he turneth from his wickedness. Neither shall the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sinneth.
So when the righteous are righteous and then they sin, problems there. His righteousness shall not deliver him. Verse 13.
When I shall say to the righteous that he shall surely live, if he trust to his own righteousness and commit iniquity, all his righteousness shall not be remembered. But for his iniquity that he hath committed, he shall die for it.
Wow. This is why our righteousness has to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. They have an appearance of righteousness, but inside they are corrupted. If we are so, then we will fall in the Ezekiel 13. Our righteousness will not be remembered. So, establishing our own righteousness through the law. Here's another problem with the Pharisees. Romans 10, 1 to 4.
Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Allah for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Allah, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of Allah's righteousness, and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of the Most High. For Hamashiach is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believeth.
All right. They have a zeal, but not according to knowledge. So this is talking about the Pharisees. This is talking about the religious people of Israel. They being ignorant of Allah's righteousness, which is through Yahushua Mashiach, of course, and going about to establish their own righteousness, which is of the law, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Allah. For Hamashiach is the end of the law. The end of the law there is the point aimed at. He is the fulfillment. He is the embodiment for righteousness to everyone that believeth. So, the law itself is dangerous in the hand of the carnal man. If we are not believing in Hamashiach, and we are still carnal, then we will go about establishing our own righteousness. So we'll go about setting up our own rules. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. The carnal man will find it impossible to overcome the law. So, we can be blameless in the law, but still fall short of the kingdom. We can be blameless in the law, yet still fall short of the kingdom. And let's hear what Shaul has to say. Philippians 3, 1-5. Read, please.
Finally, my brethren, rejoice in the master.
Sorry, let me set it up. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Finally, my brethren, rejoice in Yahuwah. To write the same things to you, to me indeed is not grievous, but for you it is safe. Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the concision. For we are the circumcision, which worship Alua in the spirit, and rejoice in Yahusha HaMashiach, and have no confidence in the flesh. Though I might also have confidence in the flesh, if any other man thinketh that he hath whereof he might trust in the flesh, I more. Second,
Hold on there. Okay, there's a humming in the background. Huh? Oh, it's George? Okay, George, please mute your mic. All right, go ahead, please.
circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Yasharal, of the tribe of Benjamin, an Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee.
As touching the law, a Pharisee. So here is our standard now. He's going to tell us what the Pharisees represented. Verse 6.
Concerning zeal, persecuting the assembly, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless.
Oh, this is very important. Touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. Yet still, he was persecuting the assembly. Now, a true believer who is walking in the ruach today will not be persecuting anyone. There's nothing in our belief, nothing in following the way that tells us we have to persecute someone. That in itself tells you that there's a righteousness that is above the righteousness that is in the law. So he was blameless in the righteousness which is in the law. So that should mean then that he's on his way to the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
That should sound as if I am blameless in the righteousness which is in the law, then that means I am good. But verse 7 says,
but what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Hamashiach.
in other words, this righteousness that was in the law, that is not enough. It is something that I'm willing to call a loss. Verse 8.
Yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Hamashiach Yahusha, my example, my master, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Hamashiach.
In other words, he is willing to throw away the righteousness that is in the law. His blameless righteousness. He's saying that that is nothing compared to the knowledge of Yahushua HaMashiach. Yeah? Verse 9.
Yeah, thank you. And be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Hamashiach, the righteousness which is of Alua by faith.
You see? Be found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law. Not mine own righteousness, but that which is through the emunah or faith of Yahusha. The righteousness which is of Alua by emunah. So there we have the fact that we can be walking blamelessly in the law and still be lacking. So it's not enough to say we are obeying the law. So those people who say they are Old Testament only are those people who say, well, all you have to do now is to obey the commandments. All you have to do is obey the law. This is showing you that that is a fallacy. That is not what the word is saying. It is saying that you have to win a Mashiach. Verse 10.
That I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto death.
Verse
By
11.
any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead.
Yeah, verse 12.
Not as though I had already attained, either were already perfect, but I follow after, if that I may apprehend that for which also I am apprehended of Hamashiach Yahusha. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before.
So I press toward the mark. Verse 14. Where is off?
I press towards the mark of the prize of the high calling of Alua in Hamashiach Yahusha.
All right, so it's not enough to be keeping laws. He says he is willing to put all of that behind him and press towards the mark of the high calling. All right, so let's look at this in action. We're going to look at examples of being in obedience to the law, yet lacking in Hamashiach. Being obedience to the law where our righteousness will equal the righteousness of the Pharisees, but lacking in Hamashiach. And Hamashiach gave us this in Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 5. Matthew, chapter 5, verse 21, I had it. Verse 21. Read, please.
But I say, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raka, that means fool, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire.
All right, so let's look at it now. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill. So where the Pharisees are concerned, according to the letter of the law, if you do not kill, then you are righteous. Yeah? If you do not kill, you are righteous. But Hamashiach has magnified the law now and showed you the spirit of the law that showed you where your righteousness has to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, and taking it to a point where it says if you're even angry with your brother without a cause, you are unrighteous. Yes? Under the law, there is nothing that says if you're angry without your brother without a cause, then you have sinned. But Hamashiach is showing you that it is wrong. And if you even call your brother a fool, you will be in danger of hellfire. Under the law, where the Pharisees are concerned, there is no law that says if you call your brother a fool, anything is wrong. So you will be righteous under the law if you call your brother a fool. So there we have an example of the go ahead.
Can I add to that one quickly?
Yes.
So it says, now Yahuwah is saying, let's take this a notch. All right, because Yahusha said, when your brother asks you to go a mile with them, do what? You must go an extra mile for them. So now Yahusha is teaching them to say, You have heard of old time that thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill is in danger of judgment. And now he expands on it to do something they didn't know by telling them, I say to you that whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of judgment. Now, what the Most High is also saying again now is that even with cause, you can still extend mercy. This is the mark of the high calling now. This is what the Spirit of the Lord will do to you. Even with cause. Hence Shaul was saying that now we even suffer for what is right. So although we are right, we don't have to even go ahead and call them a fool. And we hold back wrath entirely. Because someone might be looking on this and say, okay, I'm justified because I am angry and I can justify my anger. They stepped on my toes, and so I have the right to be angry at them. But Yah is saying to you, even in that moment of that pain, of the disappointment, you can still extend what? Mercy. Shalom.
All right, let's look at another one. 27.
Oh, ye have heard that it was said by them of old. No, we already. Okay. It is said of them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her, committed adultery with her already in his heart.
All right. So under the law, as long as you don't physically commit the adultery, then you are okay. This is what Shaul was mean concerning the righteousness of the law, blameless. Because as long as you don't physically commit adultery under the law, then you're okay. You have not sinned. But there is now also the space for lusting. Because you're going to say, I'm not committing adultery, but hey, at least I can look.
Yeah.
Hamashiach is saying that even if you look to lust. Yeah, go ahead.
So the Most High is checking the doorway through which sin comes out. The intent, that you check your intentions, the motives. Don't just allow thoughts to just run in your head, because that's how sin comes and creeps in on us unaware. So you have to stand guard, isn't it? Guard your heart, from out of it flows what? All the issues of life. So you have to check it. In that when you see a woman, I mean, for a man, it's obvious there's only two things that is going to come out of it. If you do not check that thought. Anyway, I pray we can understand that. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yep. Verse 33.
Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old times, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto Yahuwah thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is Aluah's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by the head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil.
Okay. All right. The questions that are in the chat, after we're finished, we can go back through and see if we can answer them, okay? All right, so here's another one. Swearing. The word says, pay thy vow. Hamashiach is saying, do not even vow. Do not even vow. So, whatever you say, yeah, yeah, nay, nay. If I'm going to do it, I say yes. If I'm not going to do it, no. No vowing. All right, let's look at another one that is more profound. Verse 38. Read, please.
Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also.
All right. Here is another one. To make our righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. Now back under the law, if somebody takes an eye, you take an eye, they are righteous. If someone hits out your tooth, you hit out his tooth, you are righteous. Yes? But no, under the magnified law, our righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. If somebody does you something, he says turn the other cheek. Give him an opportunity to do it again. Yes? And verse 40 says,
And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also.
you see that?
Yep.
The totally different righteousness.
So, equality. 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 That is a legalistic righteousness.
Yes.
He stepped on my toe, so I ought to slap him.
Yes.
That means your brother is waiting for the day you step on his toes, so that he can do what? He can also as well slap you. And that is matching the letter, word for word.
Yes.
It says for you to do this, so you also have to do this. And this is what turned our fathers into legalistic people, that they were not now offering the righteous sacrifices to the Most High, because they thought they brought the sacrifices to the Most High on basis that the reason why He's protecting us is because of these animals we are sacrificing. The reason why He's doing us good is because of what we are giving Him. So we are matching Yahuwah by our standards. In other words, we manipulate the Most High with our good works. We manipulate Yahuwah by bringing our offerings and our supplication. We bring these things to Him not because we love Him, but we bring it so that we can get something out of it. And this is what the eye for an eye in the Torah started doing to the people. It started causing them to kill one another. So if you owe me, I am right. It is only right for you to pay me back that which you owe me. And so I will hold you until you have released what is due me. But the Most High is saying that no, if you are converted inside, it is not about being right. It's about extending mercy. That means that mercy is going to cause you to suffer long, because internally you are right and you are defending your being right because you want to stand on it to justify your reasons why you ought to be paid back or you ought to seek vengeance for yourself.
Yes.
So this is what the letter does to you, an eye for an eye. Oh, I'm righteous, you've got to be righteous. Oh, I did this to Yahuwah. You also have to do it to Yahuwah. But that is not the essence of the word. That is not the essence of the law. When you are merciful, which is what Yahushua is teaching here, you suffer for even right. So right is killing you inside because you are holding back wrath. So you are suffering for your neighbor to stand a chance in realizing and seeing their error as well. That's why the Most High is slow to anger, isn't it? Slow. Yep. But Torah, the letter, is going to cause you to justify. And I'm going to give a very simple example. This is how legalistic we can become by walking in the letter. Remember our Archfather Solomon. Solomon walked at some point by the letter because he was looking for the loopholes in order to not be on the wrong side of Yahuwah. So what did he do to satisfy all the lust and cravings in him? He knew that Torah, for you to sleep with a woman, that you have to be married. If not, Yah will rain vengeance on you. So what does he do? He goes about legalizing every form of what? Every form of lust by marrying them, and so he stands righteous in the sight of the letter. So it led him to marrying how many women? As many women as you can think. But we saw what in the end it did to him, isn't it?
Yep.
So you can be justified by the letter, but spiritually you are dead. Internally, you are a hypocrite and you are dead. I am hoping this is blessing people, because the Most High has brought forth this word in this time, because there is sin in us that he wants to check. Hypocrisy, pretense. People have been pretending by the letter for a long time, and Yah wants to extract that out of us, to show you your transgression so that you can truthfully be converted now. So an eye for an eye in the word is where you are going to die, because there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but its end is what? Destruction. So if you follow the letter, you will convince yourself, because by the letter you would know, you would believe that you are righteous. But internally, the Most High has already marked you so horrendous that one day you'll be shocked when you stand in front of him with your hands up and say, but I did all these wonderful works. But I prophesied. But I did good. I know I was evil, but at least, yeah, I did some good. Why didn't you mark those ones? No, those were all filthy rags. They didn't come from a place of purity. These are the times when we ought to worship the Most High in spirit and in truth. And you can only do that when you are converted within. Do you know what it feels like to forgive somebody who is undeserving? It's painful, because everything inside of you says, pay them back, pay them back. But Yahuwah's mercy is costing you, because he has forgiven you of so much, you are also forgiving others so much. It doesn't mean that there is going to be absence of pain. You are going to experience pain when you're forgiving people. But it says, hold, let my mercy curb down that pain. Don't let that feeling dictate to you. That will be leaning to your own understanding. If you follow the letter, you will be gratified to express that vengeance. But follow the example of Hamashiach. In that when he was crushed, afflicted by all these people, he didn't retaliate. Because he could have been justified should he have what? Brought forth vengeance. But he believed that vengeance was for the Most High, and so he extended mercy, which was love. And this is how he fulfilled Torah. Torah, purity. Shalom.
All praises to the Most High. Well, let's look at another one. Onto another one. 43.
Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you.
All right. Now hear this. Under the law, under the Torah, the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, if you love your neighbor and hate your enemies, then you have not sinned. This is their righteousness. But we have to surpass their righteousness by loving our enemies. And Barakah, bless them that curse us, do good to them that hate us, and pray for them which despitefully use us and persecute us. You see how far different the righteousness is. This is what Hamashiach was speaking about. And we have many people today who are teaching that our enemies are only our people. So it is okay to hate other people. I don't know where in the scripture that came from, but an enemy is an enemy. All right? And verse 45 tells us why we should do this.
Let me dwell on 44 one more time.
Yes, yes.
But I say unto you, Love your enemies. Now, all of us, if we're going to be truthful so that the word of Yah becomes right in this moment, how easy is it to love your enemies?
Hard.
Let's face the consequences. Let's be real. So that someone doesn't sit there and say, no, but I only reacted because I felt validated because they hurt me. No. He says, love your enemies. That is those who hurt you, those that oppress you.
Yes.
If you are truly converted within, it is so simple. It's like drinking water to forgive. It is so easy. But it's not easy if you haven't been practicing it. If you haven't been denying yourself and trying to do, at least give yourself a chance by doing this. Love your enemies. The same people who are afflicting you and hurting you, who have used you and despitefully used you, who have abused all your kindness. Yahweh is saying to you, love them. Now, question becomes, how do you even love them? You won't be able to hear this or understand this when your heart is hardened. How do I love my enemies and those who despitefully use you and abuse you, those that have killed you for all these centuries? How do you do that? He even says, bless them that curse you. How easy is it to bless them that curse you? Those who don't want to celebrate your victories. Those who are ever ready to condemn you. How do you bless such people? And he says, do good to them that hate you. How do you do that? There's a lot of house, question mark. And pray for them which despise. How can I pray? I can't even do good to them. Now you expect me to pray for them, to wish them well. How can I do this? See, you cannot walk in the spirit of the of the law if you cannot understand this. Yahweh telling you to do this, through this is how you are going to be perfected. To be able to walk without blame, without spot, without wrinkle. But if only you are going to listen and lean on to the Most High in these times. How do you love your enemies? It is an impossible task. Because they might even turn and kill you at some point. But is that what matters? Or is that your zeal is to please Yahuwah? If your zeal and your entirety of your being, your existence is to please the Most High, which is faith, then it's going to be very easy for you. This is where Yah puts a stumbling block. And only those who love him can be able to transcend. That means move past or walk past this. If you are living by the letter, this is going to be a wall. You cannot go here. This is where you stop.
Yep.
But if you live in by the Spirit, that is your absolute trust and reliance and knowing that vengeance belongs to Yahweh, this you're going to sail through. And that's why we are stopping here so we can emphasize this to you. That in the presence of forgiveness doesn't mean pain is absent. No. But Yahweh is saying, I see and I feel your pain. But remember that which you have also done to me for many years, since you were born. How many things have you done to me? How many times have you lied? And caused many people to be what? To be butchered. On your siblings, you lied on your siblings and your father ended up beating your brothers and sisters. How many times have you lied on your colleagues? How many times have you lied to your brethren? How many times have you been wrong in the sight of me? If you can number the number of offenses you have done since you were given birth into this earth, then I would forgive you. Because there is no way you can remember every sin you have committed. And because you cannot remember it, this is how the mercy of Yahuwah and his long suffering and his forbearance have done for you. So you should be able to extend the very same act of mercy towards even those that despise you. Many have turned their pain into altars and they are sitting there bowing and worshiping Satan. Rather than dismantling and demolishing it and walking past it, they say, no, I can forgive, but I cannot forget. That is the deception that is
Yep.
leading to damnation.
Yes.
When you forgive, you forget. How
Yes.
do you do that? Is also another word in its right season. But everything that seemed impossible way back in our carnal years is now possible if you walk in the Spirit. If you are converted, if you allow the word to change, to do a transformative work in you, that transformation can only happen if you practice this word daily, meditate on it, and you do it. You check yourself when you are feeling things and you want to act opposite, contrary to what the word says. You lean to the word and you show mercy. It's going to be killing you inside, but guess what? You are not dying in vain. These are those who lose their life for my name's sake. Your forgiveness is depleting you in the physical, but in the spiritual is bringing you life. That is the irony about this, walking this journey. So you are dying here on this earth, laying down your life and being merciful, and you are being filled with so much sorrow, so much pain, and it's humbling you and it's bringing you down, and it's conforming you to the image of Yahushua Mashiach, which is the most virtuous and most purifying, most perfect way to produce these fruits that only can please Yahuwah. And this is what we call the long suffering. You suffering for your neighbors, those who offend you. This is what we are talking about. All right, shalom.
Yeah, all praises to the Most High. So, where are we? I think we're almost there. Yeah, I think we're there. Just wanted to show those examples. I hope we understand the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, the difference between walking in obedience to the law and walking in the righteousness of Yahusha. The righteousness of Yahusha transforms us totally into righteous beings, into little copies of himself. And remember, when he was here, the scribes and the Pharisees were always attacking him. So when we have the likeness of Hamashiach, the religious of the day will not like us and will attack us. We cannot be the religious of the day. As we have seen from start to finish, our righteousness must exceed the scribes and the Pharisees. And we are happy that we are able to show in the end that what it means for our righteousness to exceed those of the scribes and the Pharisees. You can be obedient to the law, blameless in obedience to the law, in perfect obedience to the law, and be totally lacking in the eyes of the Most High, in the righteousness of the Most High. All right? Shamal, you have anything to say before you go in summary?
No, everything has been said, but I believe the Most High is going to bring out more things, more understanding, because these are the final or the latter times where we all ought to be perfected, not hypocrites, not remain in our constant state. We have been practicing hypocrisy for such a long time that now we have taken on that nature and we cannot even see ourselves. So Yahuwah now wants to bring forth the word in a different light so that we can begin to look at ourselves through the lens of Hamashiach in order to now be purified and to conform to the perfect image of his Son, whom he gave as an example unto us. So brothers and sisters, take these words that you have heard and let your righteousness now exceed that of the Pharisees and the Scribes, because they had a form of holiness, but we could see that they made the word of no of no benefit. There was no power in the word that they had. They had the word, they had the Torah, but no one could see how powerful Torah was. because no one saw the transformation of the Torah in them. They were just speakers, great in speech, very smooth like the snake, always seeking to only devour people and to justify why they need and deserve Yah's mercy. So let us have the heart of a Mashiach, and let us continue to walk in humility. Humility just simply means not thinking highly of yourself at all times. Always ever ready to sacrifice your needs and forgo your desires in order for your neighbor to find life. So I'm going to rest on this one. Shalom to you all, and the Most High keep you.
All right. So we have some questions. I see. I have someone here who was, I think Armstrong has held up his hand. Armstrong, could you speak, please? Can I hear this? You can hear it too? Learn to. You wanted to say something, Armstrong? Okay, so where are the questions? Someone asked, can you explain long suffering? Well, as the name suggests, the name gives the meaning really. Long suffering, let's look for it though, to get exactly what it means in the verse. Long suffering. Galatians 5 about 22 or to about 22. Galatians 5. Long suffering is from the Greek word makrothomia, from the same as G3116, longanimity, that is objectively forbearance or subjective fortitude, long suffering, patience. So the closest thing to it would be patience, but long suffering generally refers to you. I don't want to use patient, but patiently waiting through a negative period. So someone has been bothering you for quite some time, and you feel like retaliating, but in long suffering, you patiently take whatever that person gives you for the sake of peace and for the sake of righteousness. So long suffering is generally patience. Huh? A legalist. What is the meaning of being a legalist? A legalist is someone who just believes in sticking to rules and laws only. Usually rejecting the human aspect of it. So that person would be just sticking to what the rules say and not making adjustments for the rules. So, for example, what is it they call? There is a word that they use. This thing starts with C. That you use when there are rules. When you use your there's a word that they say you use. Conscience, or there's another one. Yeah, conscience is one. There's another one that you use. Use your, when you evaluate a situation, and then you deal with the situation according to how you evaluate it. It's not your conscience. What's that word again?
Tolerance.
No, it's not tolerance. It's actually a word that means you subjectively use your own conclusion, your own, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember it. Anyway.
Please explain Romans 9 verse 13, which says, Jacob I love, but Esau I hated.
Romans 9:13. Someone is asking to explain.
Romans 9:13.
It is here. We explain it on the website. I think someone else said that we have it explained on the Jacob is an article by itself. Oh, we have an article on the website called Israel Mine Elect, in which we explain it. But let's go and explain it. See if we can explain it here. I guess it will be explained there more in detail. Romans 9:13. Romans 9:13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Now, I don't know what the person wants to explain about that. Is it the fact that he says he hates Esau? I don't know.
Yes.
All right, the fact that he hates Esau. Now, it's in respect of loving our enemies. Okay, but Esau have I hated. So let's go to Malachi 1 verse 4 for where that came from. Malachi 1 verse 4. Malachi 1 verse 4. Go ahead, please.
Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahuwah hath indignation forever.
People, so he hath indignation against Edom forever. But he went on to say in Hebrews 10, he, the Most High, hath indignation against Edom forever. But in Hebrews 10, verse 30, so he hates Edom, but he said in 30.
All right. For we know him that hath said, vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith Yahuwah. And again Yahuwah shall judge his people.
Judgment, vengeance belongeth to me, I will recompense. So when it comes to Edom and the Most High hating Edom, it is not up to us to recompense. It is not up to us to take vengeance. Yes?
Yeah.
Because it was the children of Edom, it was a Roman soldier who pierced Hamashiach in his side. And Hamashiach said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. It was Edomites who were killing Hamashiach, the children of Rome. He said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. So how today are we now to look at Romans 9:13, where the Most High says he hates them, and then we are now going to take it up in our hands and also hate them? Yeah? Hamashiach did not hate them. When they persecuted him and they crucified him, he did not. He asked forgiveness for them. So let's go back now to the love our enemies and finish it off. John, Matthew 5, near the end. It says, it tells you why you must love your enemies. Yes? Read verse 45, Ak.
That ye may be the children of your Father which is in Shamayim. For he maketh the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust.
So this is how you know that you're a child of the Most High. When Edom, who the Most High hates, right? You even love them as your enemies. Because the Most High makes the sun to rise on the evil Edomites and on the good. He sends the rain on the just and on the unjust Edomites. So you now being able to tolerate them, even though they don't deserve it, that is you being like the Most High, who provides for them, even though they do not deserve it. Because the Most High works in time. There will come a time when he will destroy them, and he removes his mercy from them, and then he destroys them. Yes? It is not for us at this time to be hating anyone. It is us to love our enemies.
Oh,
I hope that, yeah, go ahead.
also, it goes back to what we said earlier on, that do you remember how many things you have been forgiven for? Look at the children of Israel. How many transgressions did they commit to the Most High? Just count it. You go into the scriptures and start counting and see if you won't lose track of it.
Countless.
How many times did they rebel? I mean, they've done some of the I can't even find the words to describe it. But the most wicked things you can think about has as well come from the children of Yasharal. And that's why the Most High in Deuteronomy 23:7, he says to them what? He says to them something that is very key.
Deuteronomy 23.
Yeah, 23:7. See, you cannot be there is a point where you allow Yahuwah to be Yahuwah.
Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, for he is thy brother.
So that means at some point there is a limitation to us. That's why when someone tells you you are God, it's a deception. Can you make it rain? Can you make the sun shine? Only the one who can do that is qualified to decide who he hates and who he loves. And no one can be able to condemn him. So this is a point where you allow the Most High to be what? The Most High. And you know your place and you walk in humility. So you do not think highly of yourself to think you are more qualified than the next person who seemingly it looks like they're actually being wicked. All right. So there is a demarcation line that we allow Yah to be Yah. And the Most High was actually right in what he said concerning Esau when he said, I hate Esau. Because we saw what he grew up to become. Although he grew up in the righteous home, guess what? He chose the wrong path. So he validated the Most High's words of which he spoke concerning him. And that's what we are talking about. He became rebellious, and the moment it got worse was when he rejected his father's decision for them to go to the house of who? Of Shem, to learn the ways of Yah. He rejected it because what? He was rebellious.
He loved his belly.
Should he have gone there, he would have peradventure found wisdom in order to obtain repentance and mercy from Yahuwah. So Yahuwah is showing forth mercy even to those who are undeserving in these times. That means he could have done the very same thing to Esau for Esau should he have repented. I hope that helps whoever asked that question. Shalom.
Shalom. Any more questions? All right, no more questions. Okay, thank you all for watching. This is Kazak Eliyahu Yasharal along with my co-host Shamuel Fabi. I want to say shalom to our YouTube family. All right, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment on our videos, subscribe if you have not. Please share and let the word go out. All right. And remember, our YouTube channel has many other videos, many other detailed teachings that you can check out. Probably over 200 videos. Yeah, over 200 videos we have on our channel, endless hours that you can watch. And of course, don't forget our website, justaword.org, justaword.org, and also our 24-hour radio, justawordradio.com, justawordradio.com. All right, so thank you all for watching, and until next time, shalom.